She smiled every day at recess, never eating, never playing. A billionaire thought he was there to donate money until he opened a little girl's backpack and found an empty space filled with a drawn lunch. This isn't a rescue story. It's about what happens when someone chooses to stay. Sophia smiled every day at recess, not the loud, careless smile children wear when they run too fast or laugh too hard, but a careful one. A smile that stayed in place, a smile that didn't belong to the noise around it. The playground at Bayshore Ridge Elementary was chaos in motion. Sneakers scraped against concrete. Kids shouted names that would be forgotten by dinner. Sandwiches were unwrapped. Juice boxes were crushed flat and tossed aside without a second thought. Hunger for most of them lasted only until the bell rang. Sophia sat alone. She chose the far edge of the yard, where the chain-link fence hummed softly in the wind. Knees pulled close to her chest, hands folded neatly on top of a faded blue backpack that looked too thin to hold much of anything. She wasn't eating. She wasn't playing. She wasn't watching anyone in particular. She was smiling. Rowan Vale noticed her by accident. He hadn't come to the school to notice children. His schedule allowed exactly 30 minutes hand over a donation check shake. The principal's hand, say a few clean words about opportunity and responsibility, take a photo leave. Efficiency was his religion. But as the principal spoke about outdated computers and cracked pavement, Rowan's attention slipped. His eyes caught on something that didn't move while everything else did. A child without food, a child without movement, a child with a smile that felt practiced. Rowan stopped walking. "Who is that?" he asked quietly. The principal followed his gaze. There was a pause, small but not empty. "That's Sophia," she said. "She's very quiet. Nothing more. No concern. No explanation. Just a label." Rowan felt a tightness in his chest he didn't recognize. Quiet, he thought, wasn't what this was. This was something else. Rowan didn't ask permission. He turned away from the principal and walked toward the fence, his polished shoes suddenly out of place on cracked concrete. As he approached, Sophia noticed him instantly. Her smile widened just a fraction. Polite, alert, ready. She didn't stand. She didn't move away. She simply watched him. Rowan crouched so they were eye level, the knees of his tailored trousers pressed against the cold ground. "Hi," he said. "Hi," Sophia replied at once. Her voice was calm. Too calm. "Why aren't you eating?" Rowan asked gently. For a moment, just one, the smile cracked. Then it snapped back into place. "I already ate," she said quickly. Rowan glanced at the ground around her. No crumbs, no wrappers, no juice box, nothing. He didn't challenge her. "Then why are you holding your backpack?" he asked. Sophia's fingers tightened around the straps. "I like holding it." Another perfect answer. Something shifted in Rowan's chest. This wasn't shyness. This was strategy. "Can I see what's inside?" he asked. Sophia hesitated. Her eyes flicked toward the teachers, the building, the adults who were watching but not really seeing. "You won't tell," she whispered. "Tell who Rowan asked." She didn't answer. Slowly, carefully, she opened the zipper. The backpack was empty. No books, no lunchbox, no forgotten homework. At the very bottom lay a single folded napkin. Sophia lifted it out with both hands and unfolded it carefully. Drawn in pencil was a lunch, neat, detailed, deliberate. 2 slices of bread, lettuce, cheese, a juice box with a straw. In the corner, written in uneven letters, "It's okay." Rowan forgot how to breathe. "I draw it," Sophia said softly, as if apologizing. "So it feels like I have one." The playground noise faded. Deals Rowan had closed, companies he had built, crises he had survived. None of it prepared him for a pretend lunch drawn on a napkin. A tear slipped down his face before he could stop it. Sophia noticed immediately. "Are you sad?" she asked. "No," Rowan said quickly, wiping his cheek. "Just allergies." She nodded. Adults always had reasons. Why sit here? Rowan asked after a moment. Why not with the others? Sophia folded the napkin again with careful precision. If I sit with them, they ask questions. What kind of questions? She placed the napkin back into the backpack, zipped it shut, and then people notice. The smile returned, armor back in place. The bell rang sharp and sudden. Children jumped to their feet, groaning and laughing at the same time. Sophia flinched, then smoothed her face. I should go, she said. They don't like it when you're late. Rowan stood too. Sophia, does anyone know? She paused. Her eyes flicked toward the building. My aunt gets tired, she said. That was all. Not blame, not denial. Just a fact, spoken the way children speak truths they don't expect adults to fix. Please, she added quietly. Don't talk to the office. Rowan nodded. Okay. She studied his face, checking whether the word meant the same thing to him as it did to her. Then she walked away, disappearing into the line of children. Rowan remained by the fence long after the yard emptied. For the first time in his life, he understood something that money had never taught him. Hunger didn't scream. It followed rules. That night, Rowan Vale did not sleep. The penthouse was silent except for the low hum of the city far below traffic lights, blinking like distant stars, indifferent and endless. A full dinner waited untouched on the long glass table, perfectly plated, still warm. Rowan stood at the window, tie loosened, replaying the image he could not shake. A blue backpack, an empty zipper, a napkin that said, "It's okay." He had spent his life solving problems with scale. If something hurt, you expanded. If something broke, you optimized. If something failed, you replaced it. But this was small, quiet, disciplined. Sophia hadn't begged. She hadn't cried. She had adapted. Rowan sat on the edge of his bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he was waiting for a verdict. He realized something uncomfortable then. If he had walked past that fence 30 seconds earlier, none of this would exist in his mind. The thought made his stomach twist. How many children had learned rules like hers? Don't ask. Don't be seen. Smile so no one notices. By morning, Rowan canceled 3 meetings. His assistant paused on the phone, surprised but didn't argue. She heard the change in his voice. He returned to Bayshore Ridge Elementary without cameras, without announcements, without permission. Recess had already started. The yard exploded with sound and motion just as it had the day before. Food everywhere. Crumbs falling like snow that never had consequences. Then Rowan saw her. Same fence, same posture, same folded hands. But today, Sophia wasn't smiling. Her eyes were lowered. Her backpack rested against her chest like a shield. Rowan didn't approach right away. He watched. A boy ran past with a sandwich too big for his hands, laughing as mayonnaise smeared across his cheek. Sophia flinched just slightly, then reset her face. That was when Rowan knew. This wasn't a moment. This was a system. Rowan approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Hi," he said. Sophia looked up, surprised, then recognition softened her eyes. "You came back." "I did." She glanced around instinctively. "You're not supposed to." "I know," Rowan replied. "Adults broke rules all the time." That seemed to satisfy her. He sat beside her, not too close. Left space. He had learned that much already. "I brought something," he said. From a plain brown paper bag, he pulled out a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly. An apple. A small carton of milk. Sophia didn't reach for it. She stared as if the food might vanish if she acknowledged it. "This is for you," Rowan said gently. Her lips parted, then closed. She shook her head. "I can't." "Why not?" "If I eat here," she whispered, "people will see." "See what?" "That I didn't have anything." There it was. Rule 1, don't be visible. "I can sit with you," Rowan offered. "Then it just looks like we're talking." Sophia studied the yard like a chessboard. Teachers, students, lines of sight. Finally, she nodded. Rowan placed the bag between them and waited. Sophia opened the sandwich slowly, took one small bite, chewed, swallowed. Then she stopped. "It's not good," Rowan asked. "It's good," she said quickly. "Then why stop?" She folded the wrapper halfway back. "I have to eat normal. Normal, if you eat too fast, people know you're hungry. If you eat too slow, they ask questions." Rowan felt something tighten painfully in his chest. "Who taught you that?" Sophia shrugged. "You just learn." After a moment, she took another bite, then carefully wrapped the rest. "For later," she said. For my brother." Rowan paused. "How old is he? 6? Does he eat at school?" Silence settled between them. Rowan reached into the bag again and pulled out another sandwich, then another apple, another milk. Sophia's eyes widened, fear first, then disbelief. "These are for both of you," Rowan said. She searched his face carefully. Trust for her was never free. Rowan did not stay long. He didn't want the moment to attract attention. He stood, nodded once, and walked away, as if nothing extraordinary had happened. Behind him, Sophia took another bite. Not faster. Just less afraid. Over the next few days, Rowan returned. Sometimes with food, sometimes with nothing at all. Sometimes he didn't sit beside her. He stood near the fence, hands in his pockets, letting Sophia decide whether to come closer. That became his rule. Choice. But familiarity has weight. On the third day, a teacher paused mid-sentence when she noticed Rowan kneeling near the fence. Her smile tightened. A staff member glanced twice, then whispered to another adult. Sophia noticed before Rowan did. "They're looking," she murmured, pulling her backpack closer. "It's okay," Rowan said softly. "We're just talking." She nodded but didn't relax. By the 5th day, Sophia didn't sit by the fence at all. She stood near her class, instead, eyes flicking toward Rowan, once then dropping to the ground. When the bell rang, she didn't look back. That afternoon, the principal asked Rowan to stop by her office. The room smelled faintly of disinfectant and paper. Certificates lined the walls like rules in frames. "There have been concerns," the principal began carefully, "about what Rowan asked. Boundaries." The word landed heavy. "Parents have noticed," she continued. "Other children are asking questions." "Because they're curious," Rowan said. "Because they're confused," she replied. "And some are upset." Why? Her jaw tightened. "Because one child isn't pretending anymore." Rowan understood then. Kindness didn't just help. It disrupted. And disruption, no matter how quiet, always made noise. Sophia stopped coming to the fence. It wasn't dramatic, no goodbye, no explanation. Just a quiet correction, the kind children learn early when attention becomes risky. Rowan noticed immediately. At recess, she stayed with her class, standing just close enough to belong, just far enough not to be noticed. Her eyes flicked toward him, once then dropped to the ground. No smile, no wave. That hurt more than the principal's warning. Rowan stepped closer anyway. "Sophia," he said softly. She stiffened. "You shouldn't," she whispered without looking at him. "Why, they're talking," she said. "Everyone." Her fingers twisted together, a small motion that carried too much weight. "They asked me questions." "What kind of questions?" Rowan asked carefully. She hesitated. "Why you? If I asked you? If my mom knows?" Fear flickered behind her eyes, not of hunger, but of being seen. "I'm sorry," Rowan said. She shook her head. "Don't be." Then quieter. "Just don't come over anymore." The words landed like a door closing. "Did someone tell you that?" Rowan asked. Sophia nodded once. "The teacher said helpers don't always stay. And when they leave," she added, "things get worse." Rowan swallowed. "Is that what you think?" Sophia finally looked at him, really looked. "I don't know yet," she said. "I'm waiting." That night, Rowan sat alone in his penthouse, city lights blinking without meaning. The food on his table went untouched again. Kindness, he realized, didn't arrive quietly and leave quietly. It rearranged things. It exposed fault lines. And when it did, the ground pushed back. The next morning, Rowan returned to the school. This time he brought nothing. No bag, no food, no answers. He stood by the fence with his hands in his pockets and waited. Sophia noticed him from across the yard. She frowned. "You're still here." "Yes," Rowan said. "You didn't bring anything. I didn't want you to think I only come when I have something to give." She studied his empty hands. After a long moment, she sat beside him, careful but not afraid. "They said you might stop," she said. "I won't," Rowan replied. "But it might get harder first." Sophia nodded slowly. "That happens." The call came that afternoon. Not from the press, not from the school, from Rowan's board. Words repeated themselves, optics risk distraction. One voice didn't soften it at all. "You're associating yourself with poverty narratives," the board member said. "That doesn't align with growth strategy." "They're children," Rowan replied. "They're liabilities," the voice answered. At school, the air felt different. Sophia avoided Rowan completely now. When he stepped closer, she stepped back, instinctive, trained. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered urgently. "Why, they're watching," she said. "If my mom knows, if I asked you—" Her voice trailed off. "I didn't ask you for anything," Rowan said. "I know," Sophia replied. "That's why it's worse." The principal asked Rowan to come to her office again. The counselor joined this time. Their smiles were careful, professional. "We're obligated to review situations like this," the counselor said gently, "especially when powerful adults are involved." Power. The word followed Rowan home. 2 days later, he was stopped at the school doors. A clipboard. "Apologies. You can't be here today." "Is Sophia okay?" Rowan asked. "She's in class," the principal replied quickly. "Physically." That single word answered questions she hadn't asked. By noon, Rowan sat in his car 2 blocks from Sophia's apartment building, hands gripping the steering wheel. He didn't go in. He waited. The call came from Sophia herself. "They came," she said quietly. "They asked questions." "Are you okay?" Rowan asked. "I think so." A pause. "My mom didn't wake up this morning." Rowan's heart dropped. "Is she sick? Just tired?" Sophia said too quickly. "They asked about you," she added. "I said you didn't give me anything I asked for." Rowan closed his eyes. "What did you say instead?" "Only what I needed," Sophia replied. That evening, Rowan learned the truth. Sophia's mother had been unwell for weeks. Exhaustion. Missed shifts. A body stretched too thin. The system had notes. Checklists. It had waited. Power could expose a problem, but it couldn't sit through the night. Sophia didn't come to school the next day, or the day after. On the 3rd day, Rowan saw her sitting on the apartment steps, backpack beside her knees, held close but not hugged. He approached slowly and stopped a few steps away. "You weren't at recess," he said gently. She shrugged. "I'm not supposed to go for a bit." "Why, they said it might be easier." "For who?" Rowan asked. Sophia didn't answer. Rowan crouched, not beside her, not too close. He made himself smaller. "I'm here," he said, "if that matters." Sophia looked at him for a long time. Then she nodded. "It does." They sat in the quiet of the afternoon. A bus passed. Someone upstairs laughed at a television show. Life continued in pieces. "They asked a lot of questions," Sophia said finally. "The lady with the folder wrote things down even when I didn't finish my sentences." "That can feel strange," Rowan said. "I tried to say the right things." "There aren't right things," Rowan replied softly. "Just honest ones." After a while, the apartment door opened. Sophia's mother stood there, pale, wrapped in a sweater, too big, eyes tired but steady. Her gaze went straight to Sophia. "There you are, I was right here," Sophia said. The woman looked at Rowan, recognition then caution. "You must be Mr. Vale." "I'm Rowan," he said. and I won't stay long. She nodded. Not gratitude, permission. I know why you're here, she said quietly, and I know what people think. I'm not here to fix anything, Rowan replied. She almost smiled. That's usually how it starts. I saw something quiet, Rowan said, and I didn't want it to stay invisible. My kids aren't broken, she said firmly. I know, Rowan answered. They're resourceful. Sophia listened, fingers tracing the edge of her backpack. I won't take help that turns them into a story, her mother said. I wouldn't ask you to. Rowan replied. He paused. I want to change how help looks. From a person to a place. Sophia looked up. A place where you don't have to pretend, Rowan nodded. Exactly. The idea didn't arrive with a plan. It arrived with a memory. Rowan couldn't stop seeing the napkin, the pencil lines, the words, "It's okay," written like both a rule and a promise. A child had learned to make emptiness acceptable, and the world had rewarded her for it by not noticing. So Rowan did something unfamiliar. He listened. He met with the principal again, then the counselor. This time he spoke less. He asked questions that didn't point to him. What if Rowan said carefully there was a place after school where food was available without names? No sign-ups, the counselor asked. No, Rowan said. No announcements, the principal added. No. And no branding, she said, watching him closely. Rowan nodded. None. They talked logistics, safety, volunteers, hours, procedures that protected children without turning care into a spectacle. It took longer than Rowan expected. It always did when things were done properly. The room they chose had once been a multi-purpose space forgotten behind folding chairs and old boxes. Maintenance cleared it without ceremony. A single wooden table arrived first. Scratched, sturdy, unremarkable. 10 chairs followed, then more. No ribbon, no speech, no photos. On the first evening, only 3 people came. Sophia was one of them. She hovered at the doorway, backpack tight against her side eyes, scanning the room for rules that hadn't been spoken yet. Rowan stood a few steps back, not claiming the space. In the center of the table sat a bowl of soup and a basket of bread. Warm, real, waiting. Sophia chose the chair closest to the wall out of habit. She stared at the soup for a long moment. It's not going anywhere, Rowan said gently. That sentence felt different here. Sophia lifted the spoon with careful hands. She took a sip. Others arrived slowly. A custodian with a mug, a teacher without authority, a neighbor with a tired child. No one asked questions. No one explained themselves. They ate. Later, Sophia opened her notebook and drew. This time it wasn't a sandwich. It was a table long, steady, full. She slid the drawing toward Rowan without looking up. This one's not pretend, she said. Rowan felt something settle in his chest. It wasn't a solution. It was a commitment. By the end of the first week, more chairs were needed. Not because of a plan, but because people kept pulling them closer. The room filled in a cautious rhythm. Arrivals spaced. Departures unhurried. Soup changed flavors. Bread changed shapes. The table did not change. Sophia changed slowly. She no longer hovered by the door. She no longer chose the seat closest to the wall, unless it was already taken. Her backpack rested on the floor beside her chair, not hugged, not guarded. She spoke when spoken to, then sometimes when she wasn't. Rowan noticed all of it and pretended he didn't. He had learned that attention could bruise as easily as it could help. The pushback came quietly. A meeting request from the board marked urgent. Another from legal marked sensitive. A third from communications marked alignment. In the glass-walled conference room, voices were calm and faces were careful. This initiative isn't sanctioned, the board chair said. It's compliant, Rowan replied. Reviewed, approved, quiet, it's visible, another member said. And visibility has consequences, the chair added. For whom, Rowan asked. For you, the chair said. For us. They spoke of brand dilution, narrative drift, precedent, donors asking why a tech company was feeding soup. Rowan listened, then answered with a truth that surprised even him. Because the problem existed before I arrived, he said. And it will exist after I leave. Silence followed. You can't keep doing this, someone said. It's not scalable. Rowan nodded. It's not supposed to be. That evening, Sophia sensed the shift. You're quieter, she said, arranging her bread just so. Just thinking, Rowan replied. About stopping, she asked casually. The fear beneath it was not casual at all. No, Rowan said. About staying wisely. She considered that. That's different. Yes, he agreed. It is. Across the room, Sophia's mother arrived later than usual. Her coat didn't hang quite as loose now. She exchanged a look with Rowan, no words, just recognition. The table held. Outside the room, pressure gathered. The notice went up on a Tuesday. No accusations. No names. Just language. A review of outside involvement. An evaluation of ongoing programs. A temporary pause for assessment. Sophia read it upside down on the bulletin board, lips moving silently. Does this mean the table goes away? She asked that evening. Rowan didn't answer right away. He had learned not to fill quiet with promises. It means people are nervous, he said carefully. When something works quietly, it makes noise where systems don't like it. Sophia nodded. That happens. What happens next? She asked. We keep showing up, Rowan said. Same way, same time. And if they stop it, then we find another way that follows the rules, he said, and keeps the point. She studied his face, searching for cracks. Finding none, she relaxed just a little. The review meetings were thorough. Safety checklists, volunteer logs, sign-in sheets, boundaries respected. No one could point to harm. They could only point to discomfort. On the third day, a teacher stayed after her bowl was empty. On the fourth, a custodian brought oranges. On the fifth, a neighbor offered to wash pots. The table began to belong to the room, not to Rowan. That was the moment Sophia changed seats. She moved from the side to the middle without ceremony, spreading her drawings where anyone could see. Can I show you this? She asked a younger child. The child nodded. Rowan watched and felt the quiet ache of relief. That night, his phone buzzed. The board's final message was brief. Choose. Choose optics or choose presence. Rowan looked at the message, then turned the phone face down. At the table, Sophia was explaining a drawing. This is where everyone sits, she said. There's no head. Why not? The child asked. Because nobody's in charge of eating, Sophia replied. You just do. Rowan cleared plates, wiped the table. Ordinary motions, necessary ones. The decision did not arrive with applause. It arrived with silence. And Rowan knew he had already chosen. Rowan did not announce his decision. There was no press release, no internal memo framed as leadership wisdom. He simply stopped being the first to arrive and the last to leave. At first, almost no one noticed. That was the point. He trained others quietly. He showed them how to set the table without ceremony, how to refill soup without asking questions, how to greet people without scanning them for reasons to belong. He taught them the most difficult rule of all: do not make help the most interesting thing in the room. Sophia noticed, though. You're not here as much, she said one evening, stacking chairs with careful alignment. I'm here differently, Rowan replied. She thought about that. So it doesn't fall down if you're sick. Yes, he said. Exactly. Her mother arrived that night with steadier steps, not transformed, not untouched by hardship, just less brittle. Her shoulders no longer curved inward as if bracing for impact. I start a new shift next week, she said quietly. Earlier hours. That's good, Rowan replied. It is, she agreed. But we'll still come. Sophia smiled, not the armor smile. A real one. It moved. Outside the room, the pressure did not stop. Emails continued. Calls softened in tone, but not in intent. Rowan was offered compromises dressed up as generosity funding, without presence, influence, without association, silence purchased with scale. You don't get credit for staying, the board chair told him calmly over the phone. There's no upside. Rowan stood in the doorway of the room watching children eat soup without asking permission. There is, he replied. Just not the kind you can list. The call ended without agreement. That night, after the chairs were stacked and the lights dimmed, Rowan stayed alone. He wiped the table slowly. Soup rings, pencil marks, scratches earned honestly, proof of use. He realized something then that unsettled him more than any boardroom standoff. This place did not need him anymore, and instead of fear, the realization brought relief. Sophia returned from the hallway and pressed her palm flat against the table, a gesture so small it almost disappeared. It's staying, she said, not asking. Yes, Rowan replied. She nodded once satisfied and left without looking back. Rowan locked up and stepped into the night. For the first time since this began, he wasn't afraid of the ending. Because this wasn't an ending, it was continuity. The table became ordinary. That was how Rowan knew it was working. No one talked about it anymore, not in meetings, not in careful hallway whispers, not in emails marked urgent. It stopped being an exception and started being a habit. Children mentioned it casually. See you at the table replaced? Do you have anything to eat? Sophia arrived one evening without looking for Rowan at all. Her backpack hung loosely over one shoulder. Her notebook was tucked under her arm unopened. She walked straight to the middle seat and sat down. That should not have mattered, but it did. She spread her drawings across the table, explaining them to a younger child who had arrived with a neighbor. This one's the room, she said, pointing, and this is where people sit when they're tired. Why are there so many chairs? The child asked. So nobody has to ask, Sophia replied easily. Rowan stood near the back of the room, unseen on purpose, and felt something tighten in his chest. This was what staying looked like. Not rescue, not transformation, normalization. Her mother arrived a few minutes later, moving more easily now. She greeted people by name, laughed softly at something the custodian said, helped pour soup without apology. She caught Rowan's eye and nodded once. That was all they needed. Later, when the room thinned, Sophia gathered her drawings into a neat stack and slid one toward Rowan without speaking. He picked it up. It showed the table from above. Every seat filled, no empty space, no one standing. At the bottom, in careful letters, she had written, "This is where it's normal." "May I keep this?" Rowan asked. Sophia nodded. "That one's finished. Do you still draw sandwiches?" he asked gently. She considered the question seriously. "No," she said. "They're already here." A younger child tugged at her sleeve. "Why is this table here?" Sophia paused, weighing the question like it mattered. "So nobody has to pretend," she said. The child nodded, satisfied, and returned to their soup. Rowan turned away for a moment, giving himself privacy for the feeling that rose unexpectedly. It wasn't pride. It was peace. The board called again. The tone had changed. They spoke of balance now, of quiet alignment, of letting certain things exist because dismantling them would cost more than allowing them to remain. "You'll need to step back completely," the chair said. "No association, no presence." "You'll still fund it?" Rowan asked. Indirectly, the chair replied. "Through the foundation." Rowan looked around the room, the table, the chairs, the faint smell of soup in the air. "That's already true," he said. The call ended without ceremony. That evening, Sophia lingered after most people had left. She stacked chairs with deliberate care, making sure legs didn't scrape too loudly. "Will it still be here tomorrow?" she asked, not looking up. "Yes," Rowan said. "And next week, yes." And when people stopped paying attention, Rowan understood what she was really asking. "I'll still be paying attention," he said, "even if I'm not the one in the room." She nodded, accepting not blindly but bravely. Her mother waited by the door, watching with eyes that had learned not to hope easily. "You don't owe us this," she said quietly. "I know," Rowan replied. "That's why it matters." When they left, Rowan remained alone. He wiped the table carefully one last time. Soup rings, pencil marks, small scratches, signs of life lived honestly. The table didn't shine. It didn't ask for recognition. It simply stayed, and Rowan understood with complete clarity that this story had never been about hunger. It had been about belonging. You cannot fix the whole world, but you can build one small place within it where no one has to hide their need, their fear, or their hope. And sometimes staying long enough is enough. Rowan's absence began like a bruise, subtle then undeniable. It wasn't that he disappeared. He still came. But he no longer arrived early to check the locks or stayed late to wipe the last ring of soup off the wood. He stopped being the hinge the room swung on. He watched from the edges, and the room for a while held its breath. The first evening he didn't show up at all, the table still got set. A teacher brought bread. A custodian turned on the lights. A neighbor warmed soup in a pot they'd learned to keep in the cabinet like it belonged there, which it did. Sophia walked in with her mother and paused just for a second at the doorway. Old reflex: scan the room, count the exits, measure the rules. She spotted the teacher stirring soup, the custodian stacking clean bowls, the neighbor wiping the counter. Her shoulders lowered a millimeter. Still, she looked for Rowan. Not loudly, not obviously, just the way a child looks for gravity. She sat at the middle seat anyway. That was the new miracle. She chose the center even when her certainty wobbled. She opened her notebook, then closed it again. The pencil stayed still. No pretend lunch tonight. A younger child arrived, late, cheeks pink from cold eyes, wide like they'd stepped into something sacred. Sophia scooted her chair to make room without being asked. The child stared at the table like it might judge them. "Sit," Sophia said gently, like she'd said it 100 times. The child hesitated. "Do we have to sign something?" Sophia shook her head. "Number. What if I take too much?" Sophia paused, remembering rules that used to live in her bones. "Here," she said, tapping the table lightly, "nobody's in charge of eating." The child frowned. "But someone will get mad." Sophia looked toward the soup pot, the bread basket, the hands moving calmly through ordinary work. "Nobody gets mad," she said. "People just keep it going." The child sat. They ate slowly, as if waiting for someone to interrupt and name them. No one did. Near the end of the evening, the door opened. Rowan stepped in quietly, not as the center, not as the reason, just a person entering a room. He did not walk to Sophia first. He greeted the teacher. He took a stack of cups to the sink. He moved like he belonged to the background. Sophia saw him and didn't jump. She didn't clutch her backpack. She didn't look like she was about to negotiate. She simply watched him for a moment, and then returned to her soup. Later, when the room thinned and the last child left with a neighbor, Sophia approached Rowan with a page torn carefully from her notebook. She held it out without drama. Rowan unfolded it. A simple drawing, the table from the side. People sitting shoulder to shoulder. No spotlight, no labels. One chair slightly pulled back like someone had just stood up. At the bottom, in careful letters, Sophia had written, "You can go. It will stay." Rowan's throat tightened. He swallowed and forced his voice to remain steady. "Thank you," he said. Sophia shrugged, but her eyes shone with something new, something warmer than survival. "It has to," she said quietly. "Because if it only works when you're here, then it's not safe." Rowan nodded once, as if agreeing to a contract he'd always wanted, but never known how to sign. "You're right." he whispered. That's the goal. Sophia looked at the table, then back at him. And for the first time, she didn't ask if tomorrow would still exist. She acted like it would. The next week arrived without anyone naming it. No announcement, no final night, no warning that something important was happening. The room simply opened like it always did. Chairs scraped softly against the floor. Soup steamed. Conversation rose and fell in quiet waves. Ordinary sounds. Necessary sounds. Sophia came in with her mother just after dusk. Her mother's coat fit better now, not because life had become easy, but because she was no longer disappearing inside it. Her steps were steadier. Her eyes didn't dart the way they used to, searching for judgment, searching for an exit. She greeted people by name. That still astonished Rowan when he saw it. Because naming someone is a kind of belonging. Sophia went straight to the middle seat. Not the wall. Not the edge. The middle. She set her backpack on the floor beside her chair like it was just a backpack, not a shield. She opened her notebook, then closed it again. Tonight, she didn't need it. Rowan arrived later than usual, not to oversee, not to anchor, just to witness. He stayed near the doorway for a long moment, letting the room exist without him. This was the life he hadn't known how to build before. A world that didn't revolve around his name. A world that didn't need his presence to prove it mattered. Sophia noticed him and didn't wave. She smiled, not the armor smile, a real one. It moved. It warmed her face like sunlight finding a window. Rowan felt something unfasten inside his chest. Later, as the room thinned, Sophia lingered to help stack chairs. She aligned them carefully so no one would trip in the morning. Her hands moved with deliberate gentleness, like the work itself deserved respect. Rowan approached, slowly stopping at a respectful distance. You know, Sophia said, not looking up. I used to think everything ended. Rowan didn't interrupt. He had learned not to rush children through truth. I thought people always left, she continued, stacking another chair. Or things stopped. Or rules changed. She paused, then added softer. And it was always my fault for hoping. Rowan swallowed hard. But this didn't, Sophia said, tapping the chair legs into alignment. It stayed. No, Rowan replied, voice low. You stayed. The table just followed. Sophia finally looked at him. You didn't save us, she said plainly. Rowan nodded. I know. You didn't fix everything either. I know that too. Sophia considered him for a long moment, as if testing whether he could handle a truth without trying to buy it. Then she nodded. But you stayed long enough, she said. Rowan felt his eyes sting, but he didn't look away this time. Yes, he answered. Long enough for it to stop being about me. Sophia's mother approached, resting a hand on Sophia's shoulder. Her touch was gentle, steady, no fear hidden inside it. We should go, she said softly. Sophia hesitated, then leaned forward and pressed her palm flat against the table again. Not gratitude, acknowledgement, a child's way of saying, I believe this is real. She turned back to Rowan, serious in the way only children can be when they're deciding what they believe. Will it still be here, she asked, even if people forget how it started? Rowan answered without hesitation. Yes, he said, especially then. Sophia seemed satisfied. She picked up her backpack and walked toward the door with her mother. Halfway there, she turned back. You know what my favorite part is now, she asked. What? Rowan replied. That I don't have to remember rules anymore, she said. I can just be hungry when I'm hungry. And okay when I'm okay. Rowan exhaled as if he'd been holding his breath for months. That's a good rule, he said. Sophia nodded once, then left. And she didn't look back. That was new too. After they left, Rowan stayed. Not because anyone asked him to. Not because he felt responsible. He stayed because the quiet after mattered as much as the gathering itself. He wiped the table slowly, tracing familiar marks with the damp cloth rings left by Bowles' faint pencil lines where someone had drawn without noticing small scratches earned through honest use. The table didn't shine. It didn't ask for recognition. It simply existed ready for tomorrow. His phone buzzed on the tabletop, vibrating against the wood like a small warning. One message. Board chair, we need a final answer. Rowan didn't pick it up right away. He finished wiping the table. He stacked the last chair. He turned off the overhead lights, leaving only the small lamp by the doorway on. The room looked smaller without people in it, but not empty. Finally, he picked up the phone. The board chair's voice came through calm and controlled the voice of someone who'd spent years learning how to sound reasonable while applying pressure. We can keep this quiet, the chair said, but you need to step back completely. No association. No presence. No story. Rowan leaned against the table and listened. You'll still fund it, the chair continued through the foundation. Indirectly. It can exist, but it cannot be connected to you. Rowan looked around the room, the table, the chairs, the sink, the cabinet that held soup pots like they belonged to a building that finally understood what care could look like. That's already true, Rowan said. A pause. This path costs you, the chair warned. Influence, comfort, control. I know, Rowan replied. You don't get credit for staying, the chair added. There's no upside. Rowan's gaze dropped to the table. The same table where Sophia had once sat at the edge of the world guarding her backpack, like it held the last of her safety. The same table where she now sat in the middle, speaking easily, making room for others. Rowan felt the truth settle into him like a weight he was finally strong enough to carry. There is, he said softly. Just not the kind you can list. Another pause, longer this time. Then the chair sighed. This is your choice. Yes, Rowan replied. It is. The call ended without ceremony. Rowan placed the phone face down and exhaled. For a moment, he let himself feel it. The narrowing of certain doors, the rearranging of his life, the quiet sacrifice that would never be framed as heroism. Then something else rose beneath it. Relief. He locked up and stepped outside. Rain had eased. The street looked washed clean in that temporary way rain manages before the world returns to itself. The next afternoon, Rowan stopped by briefly, not to anchor, not to be seen, just to check. Sophia was already there, seated at the middle of the table, explaining a drawing to someone Rowan didn't recognize. This one's the future, Sophia said, tapping the page. But it looks the same. The woman smiled. That's a good future. Sophia noticed Rowan and walked over unhurried. Are you leaving? She asked. Yes, Rowan said honestly. Not forever. Just differently. Sophia nodded. So it keeps working. That's the idea, Rowan replied. She thought for a moment, then tore out a page from her notebook, folded it once, and handed it to him. Rowan opened it. A simple drawing, the table. One chair slightly pulled back like someone had just stood up. At the bottom, in careful letters, it's okay. But this time it wasn't a rule. It was a fact. Rowan swallowed, eyes burning. Sophia smiled, real warm, moving. Rowan walked away. And for the first time, it didn't feel like leaving something behind. It felt like putting it where it belonged. And that he understood was the bill he was willing to pay. The table no longer drew attention. That was the clearest sign of all. People didn't lower their voices when they entered. Children didn't pause at the doorway. No one scanned the room to see who was watching, who was in charge, who might disappear. They just came. Sophia arrived one evening, laughing about something that had happened at school. The sound startled Rowan not because it was loud, but because it was unguarded. She slid into a chair beside a younger child and pushed a bowl toward them without being asked. Here, she said, it's hot. The child nodded and ate. No rules were explained. No permission was requested. Rowan stood near the back, unnoticed on purpose. He watched the room breathe, inhale with arrivals, exhale with departures. Sophia did not look for him. That used to be the test. Now it wasn't needed. Her mother arrived later, greeted by name. She set her coat down without clutching it, poured soup without apologizing, laughed when someone spilled a little, and wiped it up with a towel already waiting. Ordinary things. Rowan felt the weight of an old habit leave his chest. Sophia leaned back in her chair and listened to the room. Not alert, not careful, just present. When she noticed Rowan at last, she didn't wave him over. She lifted her spoon in a small salute like you do when you recognize someone you trust will still be there whether you look or not. Rowan smiled back. Not to reassure, just to share the moment. Later, as chairs were stacked and voices faded, Sophia packed her notebook without checking it twice. She didn't draw tonight. She didn't need to. As she left, she turned once, not to ask a question, not to check a promise, but to say something simpler. "See you tomorrow," she said. Rowan nodded and realized she wasn't asking. She was stating a fact. Time passed without marking itself. The table didn't become famous. It didn't earn a name. It didn't attract speeches or plaques or explanations framed in glass. It became part of the building. Children planned around it the way they planned around recess or homework. Adults adjusted schedules. Soup pots found permanent homes. Extra chairs appeared without discussion. No one could remember exactly when it stopped being new. Rowan came less often now. When he did, he stayed near the edges, speaking softly, helping where asked, stepping away when not needed. He learned the discipline of not improving things that were already working. Sophia no longer tracked his presence. That was the greatest proof of trust she could offer. One evening, Rowan arrived just as Sophia was explaining something to a younger child. "This used to be where I sat," she said, pointing to the edge of the table. "Because I thought I had to." "What changed?" the child asked. Sophia shrugged. "I learned I didn't." Rowan felt the words settle deeper than any speech he had ever given. Sophia noticed him then and walked over calm and unhurried. "My teacher asked what this place is," she said. "What did you tell her?" Rowan asked. Sophia smiled. "I said it's where people eat. Nothing more. No story. No explanation. Just the truth." Her mother waved from across the room, steady now in a way that didn't ask to be admired. Rowan nodded back. He understood then that the most meaningful things don't expand. They hold. As the night ended, Rowan wiped the table once more. Fewer marks now, familiar ones. Signs of use that no longer needed interpretation. He turned off the lights and paused at the door. The room felt ready, for whoever came next. On a night that felt exactly like all the others, Rowan arrived late. The room was already full. Sophia sat in the middle backpack, resting loosely at her feet. She was listening to someone tell a story, chin in her hands, eyes bright. She laughed soft, real, unguarded. Rowan did not approach. He stood where the shadows softened the walls and watched the table do what it had learned to do. Belong. Sophia noticed him eventually. She met his eyes across the room and smiled, not to check, not to ask, not to hold him in place. Just to smile. Later, when the room thinned and the night slowed, Sophia walked over with her notebook tucked under her arm. She didn't open it. She didn't hand him a drawing. "I don't draw sandwiches anymore," she said casually. "I know," Rowan replied. "They're already here." "Yes," he said. She looked around the room, chairs, stacked bowls, rinsed, people lingering because leaving wasn't urgent. Sometimes she said thoughtfully, "I forget why this mattered so much at the beginning." Rowan smiled. "That's how you know it worked." Sophia considered that, then nodded. "Good," she said. Her mother called her name softly from the door. Sophia waved and walked away without looking back. Rowan stayed just long enough to turn off the lights. The table didn't glow. It didn't promise anything. It simply waited. Ready. And as Rowan stepped into the quiet street, He understood the truth that had taken him a lifetime to learn: you cannot fix the whole world. But you can stay long enough in one small place for a child to stop pretending. And when that happens, the place stays. Did this story move your soul? Share your feelings in the comments and rate it from 1 to 10. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, then tap the bell icon so you never miss a new story. Click the end screen to watch another heartfelt video. See you in the next story.